Hello, everyone. We are in the City Gallery of Ljubljana, where the artwork Non-Brute Force by Maja Smrekar is installed, and where the daily performances, the feeding of the algorithm was executed. We're here with the artist, Maja Smrekar, and her close collaborators. For people who are watching us, you can send us your questions if you watch us through YouTube channel. Hello, Maja.
Hello.
I know that this work is of a lot of complexity, and you've been working almost 2 years on it, but can you resume it in 2 or 3 words what it is about?
Yes. We've been having this orthogonally shaped serotonin molecule abstracted grid set up here at City Gallery in Ljubljana. And we have been feeding the algorithm every day, which meant that together with the dog, I was climbing up and down many times because we were doing the iterations for the neural network to get ever more data in order to advise me how to put plates based on a map in order that my heart would be, my heartbeat would be aligning with the heartbeat of a dog.
So the data you were providing to the machine were actually your heartbeat rates and your physiological data?
Yes, we were wearing, me and the dog, we are always wearing wearables, which are actually off-the-shelf medical diagnostic wearables. They are measuring our heart rate, respiratory rate, and our skin temperature. And they are real-time sending all the data to the non-brute force cloud that our programmers built. And the data gets classified for the output there.
I see. And do you achieve to align your heartbeat rates with the dogs?
We did. Every once in a while it happens. It's been actually happening more in the last days. So since we did, I think, more than 130 iterations, successful climbings up and down the grid in the last 3 or 4 months. It looks like machine started to learn a little something, but on the other hand, of course, it was also our bodies that have been training. The bodies of my 3 dog collaborators and myself have been training as well, together with the machine. So together we did achieve some alignments, yeah, especially in the last days.
I see. And here we come to this part of the training of the dogs. Tina Šolar and Mia Zahariaš, you work as the dog trainers for advertising industry, for film industry. How was it working for an art project? Did you do other art projects before?
Well, we did another art project with Maja a couple of years ago. Well, that one happened in theater, so it was a bit different setup than here. And it was a bit different since there we were working with dogs, and in this case, Maja had to work also with our dogs. So here we had to prepare the dogs physically before we started doing the grid, jumping and everything. Dogs need to be in a good shape to minimize the pressure on their joints. So in first part we were training dogs physically and also getting them used to the height, because when you're on the 5th floor it gets quite scary. So the dogs were also a little bit different. Some had a bit of a problems with height. The other were too excited about the jumping. So they all need to understand there are also rules up there. So we did a lot of reward-based training with them. So they get rewards for jumping and staying in the position, and they also needed to learn to get aware of their body up there, because the plate is not that big, and they are not allowed to make mistake up there, because it gets really dangerous. So yeah, it was really interesting to working with Maja. We had to also teach her how to work with our dogs, because each dog is a bit different, and it gets a bit tricky when you had to change them quite often.
How many dogs took part in this training process?
We started with 4 or 5, but at the last 3 months, we only trained with 3. So Maja's Ada and our 2 dogs.
I see. And in the last years, there is a lot of discussion and a lot of controversy about making dogs and other animals take part in art performances and other sort of performances, about the ethics of it. The discussion is because animals cannot decide, and humans are bringing them into the spaces that are not natural to them, and ask them to do things they were not used to be doing. And there is a lot of endorsement that all this discussion is getting from animal rights activists, or even from philosophers. So you, Maja, that you work with dogs very often, and you, Mia and Tina, that you train them, what can you say about this? What is your opinion based on your expertise in this theme?
Well, in my opinion, you were telling us about the ethics of it. I think it's unethical for a dog not to have a job. I'm not saying this specific kind of job, but it's in a dog's nature, or basically in everybody's nature, to work for food, to do something in order to get something. So in my opinion, dogs we're talking about dogs now, that are couch potatoes, that do nothing all day long and just get fed and pampered, those dogs are not happy dogs. So of course, it's a very valid question. Would the dogs choose this type of work? Probably not, because not many dogs have an opportunity to see something like this. It has to be created by somebody and designed and so. But that's a joke. My conscience is very clean, because I know the way we work with our animals. Like Tina said, it's reward-based training. Dogs are not forced to do anything. They're prepared to many different types of situations, and they feel comfortable in it. So they do something in order to get not only food, but also social interactions, which is the second part of dogs, very important plan. So to get fed and to interact with other dogs and humans. So I think we're really safe here.
Great. Actually, when I was watching the performances, I could see that the dogs were absolutely pleased and happy from my point of view. They were happy to take part on it. So,
oh yes.
How important is the joy and happiness for the dog to be doing things, or can the dog say, no, I don't want to do it, and retire from the project?
Yes, I mean, it has never happened, but if the dog would say, I really don't want to jump, we wouldn't force the dog. But basically it was the other way around. We had to stop their enthusiasm a little bit. So wait. Yeah, relax, control yourself. Because anybody that does some training with dogs, reward-based training, they see their willingness to work quite fast. It comes quite fast. So if they have a good experience, they want to repeat that action more and more.
I see. Well, all this, Maja, do you want to add something here?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with what Mia said. I always, it's like this, I'm working a lot, collaborating a lot with the dogs, but in some other projects I'm also collaborating with some other kinds of animals or living creatures, such as, for example, programmers, producers, plants, fungi, microorganisms, and so on. So I always that is why my projects are usually taking a lot of time, because I always like to make a very thorough research on what or who or the field that I'm dealing with, and then I try to do my best in order to learn to speak the language of the environment, which the creatures that I'm working with are inhabiting. So yes, well, as it is animal ethology, there is also the field that is called human ethology, so that also needs to be, I think, addressed. And I think that the way, for example, the methods which Mia and Tina are using, and a lot of actually contemporary animal trainers, actually humans could learn really a lot how to treat each other from those methods. This is what I want to say, actually, of methods of communication, of respectful and loving, caring communication, yes.
Well, this is very important, I think, nowadays. Maybe we can come back later into communication topic. Let's try not to forget it. Alen Balja was the head of a small team who was processing the data and creating training it and creating these patterns, these routes that were suggested after to Maja. And Alen, you are working now creating data science for a pharmacological company in Switzerland. You used to develop applications for aerospace company before. After all this experience, how was it working with the artist?
Well, first of all, let me say that no programmers were hurt during this project, so it was very ethical from this perspective. And just like our dog collaborators, we also like to code for food. So it was a different project than a traditional software project. Obviously, there's not in terms of products that you need to build. This was pretty similar, but in terms of methodologies that you apply and how you organize the work itself. So one of the important things in software development for every project is how to manage change requests when they arrive during the project, because that has huge budget implications, time implications. It can change the way developers code, and it can sometimes mean sleepless nights for programmers if a lot of changes come very late, unannounced, and so on. But in art project, this is something to, that's normal, that things change a lot here and there, and a lot of experimentation happens. And some developers are more used to it, some less. Maybe for the programmers who have hobbies in art or similar things, this is more normal. For some, it could be, I believe, very annoying.
How was it for you?
I already worked with Maja on another project. So
You were prepared.
yeah, we came prepared.
What
yes.
he's getting into.
I don't know how it was for other programmers now in the audience, but we had good fun. We had some very good last-minute findings, let's say, that when we didn't know how to proceed, and then we had to brainstorm together to find a solution that was both creative and technically feasible and artistically viable. So these sort of things you don't usually get in normal software projects. So there's these sort of rewards and challenges that are different from normal work, and I like it, and I think many programmers could benefit of working more closely sometimes with the artists.
And I know that you also had a scientific consultant in Santa Barbara University. What was his role?
Well, we started to collaborate from the very beginning, when we were still doing first experiments, and even before we started doing the experiments, just on the idea itself. And this project was always about having some scientific input, but obviously it's neither it's not a place to do a proper scientific research that could follow the normal scientific process. It's about art in this project. So the input of science was very important, and to know that we are following a certain path that is not against something scientific, or that we are doing something obviously wrong, but on the other hand, to also have a clear line that what we're doing is art, and not to try and do what science is good at and claim that what we did was scientific, while in fact wasn't. So that's why this was very important to have.
Were you also in touch with this scientist as well?
Yes, as Alen said, we were having dialogues, especially in the early stages of the project, while I was, we were all still trying to grasp actually what kind of framework would be viable and logical to do in this. At that point, I still thought it's going to be 3 agents in some kind of a triangle, dog, human, and artificial intelligence, so-called. So it was quite valuable to me to talk with a scientist who is actually also in his research researching the behavior of living beings, just the ones that are very small, the fruit flies. At some point he was doing that. His insights have been very valuable, especially from the perspective, and this is what usually happens for me in my case, that when I am still in the early stages, trying to get to know a specific field of expertise that I didn't really know a lot about before, I like to talk with the scientist at the very beginning, and then quite at the end, because at the beginning they really put me on the ground in some terms, but at the same time the paradox happens. The more they put me on the ground, the more I actually strive to resist that and do something completely else. So it is to me, it's always a very good match to a dialogue with the scientist. Yes.
And how did you think about working with AI? How did you come to this idea generally? I know that it evolved in something different from how it was at the beginning, but why did you think that as an artist you had to try to do something on this field, to do your contribution to the AI development?
Well, I was actually to compose a project which would involve my perspective towards AI. To me, it seemed logical that I would continue the research that I've done until now regarding my artistic work, at the same time also my way of living, which includes dogs. So this is how I actually started to, very soon I realized that it's going to be human dog and AI. But at some point I realized that I did a lot of research, and for a while I kind of slipped into the popular, the so-called, yeah, I will say, into the popular notion or understanding of the so-called AI, which is the one that usually gives artificial intelligence some kind of subjectivity, as if it feels it's a personalized. And after a while I realized that it's not like this. Maybe someday, but really we're totally not there. Although machine learning is a very powerful tool, and very, I'm very actually impressed by this tool. Of course, it depends in which hands this power, whose are the hands that are leaning over this tool. But nevertheless, I realized it's a tool. So then it was that this is where my methodology or the construction of my concept actually stems from. The human has subjectivity, a dog has a subjectivity through which actually is being established through a human body, because there is a specific gene which has mutated as a consequence of the parallel evolution with dogs, which means that as it's not just that the humans domesticated dogs, it was also the dogs domesticated humans. So there we have the subjectivity in in this evolutional historicity of the dog. And then there's AI, which is or machine learning, or I know that these two. I'm being very, very general. Yes. But which is actually a tool. And then I decided that this tool, that I would like to use this tool as a tool, not so much as, of course, its essence is a positivistic approach, which means it needs to have very specific input to get a very good specific output, and that really needs to be like that, because otherwise it's not working. But I wanted to do with this tool, or to put across also another message, which would be, it is important, of course, that I align my heartbeat with the one of the dog. But what is more important here is to show the possibility. And what I want to say is actually that if the broad, vast field called generally artificial intelligence was more used by the civil society, or if the civil society would be having some word and decision in about using artificial intelligence in everyday life, it has a very big possibility to become a tool of unification, whereas at the moment it's really leaning much more towards division and control.
Yes, it's a very interesting point. We have a special guest joining us by Skype. It's an AI researcher, Martí Sànchez-Fibla, who is has a PhD in computer science, but at the same time, he is a founder of Electronica project, where robots are trained to do theater. Martí, I have questions for you regarding what we were just talking about. First of all, AI. What was the development on that field in the recent 10 years? Where is it now? And the second question is, how necessary is to include the artistic participation and the artistic voice into the work with artificial intelligence?
Hello everybody. Thanks for the invitation. I hope you hear me well. Thanks for the questions, Tatiana. Well, first of all, I will catch it where Maja left it. I think it's very important, no, so that the AI that is advancing so fast, that is put on the artistic plate, and the installations like Maja, that I've been following some of its iterations, and it's very valuable how you manage to put together all these fields, no? So AI experts, dog trainers, and also with a critical view. I think this is what it has to be done, because generally, so AI, it's a big umbrella, it's advancing fast, it's in hands of big corporations, and it's important that it is put in the artistic debate, because usually it has a softer entrance to the general public, no, through the art scene. So I mean, I think that these initiatives and this critical thinking within art of AI, it's totally necessary and fundamental. So I mean, for this, I think we should do more, and this is the field, because somehow we need to demystify a bit artificial intelligence by knowing better what it is. No? So in fact, learning. So artificial intelligence is an umbrella for machine learning, which includes a lot of statistical methods for pattern recognition. And inside the statistical methods, you have the neural networks, which are now very up to date, and they are getting a very widespread usage with mainly the deep learning. Deep learning is none other thing that very big and deep neural networks, so able to handle lots of data. You need data sets, like the data set that Maja is creating with her own physiological data with the dog. So who owns these data sets is also a very important question. So that's why the artistic practice and the usage of these tools within the artistic practice is super important. To put all the available tools to generate data sets and give critical thinking. And also I want to drive a message of demystification, no, of what is to learn in a neural network. Is not something very complex, and I think artistic practice should bringing this closer to society. I mean, you have some inputs, you have some responses, and you change in some synapses, some values, to get better closeness of your inputs to the outputs, and I mean, that's all that it is. It's, I mean, we need a bit to demystify this to better understand, and to put it in projects like this, I mean, is super interesting and super necessary, in my opinion. Well, so I try to do the same in another sense with robots. People have a very kind of prejudice ideas of robots in society, and what better that people understand it a bit better and knows the state of the art of all the things, and that robots, for example, physical robots are also a tool to understand better the brain and put models of the brain into a body, which is very, very important for learning. And Maja is playing with physiological data, also with a critical thinking of who owns this data, and then putting it into the cloud. And I mean, this is absolutely necessary as well, because big corporations are using these AI techniques to control us and to make us think what they want in our weak moments. And if we continue to share our iPhone, telephone data publicly, I mean, they will manage. This I can tell you. So I mean, I would say nothing more. Congratulations, Maja, and thanks for the invitation. I think I cannot talk to you, so that would be all from my side. Hope we come back again.
Okay, thank you so much, Martí. Thank you. That was short voyage to Barcelona. Now we are back to Ljubljana again. The technology, I just had this reflection today. The technology and the dogs, they have in common that in the artwork, and this is why the contemporary art and science is so complex to show around, because they both need a lot of maintenance and a lot of care. Alen, is there also any similarity, not only in the maintenance, but also in the training between the machine learning method that you were using, or maybe you were using another method? Is there also this reward punishment? Well, not punishment, so we don't do any punishment. Reward system? And
well, not in with this methodology that was applied now, which is convolutional neural networks. But in the beginning, we were planning, but it looked like we might need some reinforcement learning techniques to train for the AI itself. And that one works by basically rewarding and punishing this software agent that then tries to find its way around the world through the data, making correct decisions to get more rewards and less punishment. Now with the dogs it's different because they didn't get punished, but if you punish the algorithm, it's not as bad. So we would go that route, but that wasn't needed because we didn't then use this technique.
Mm-hmm. I see. So your technique was
neural networks, yes, for the AI. Data set on the input, you see how it matches to the output, then you train the system, the model, with more and more data as much as possible, and it adapts itself in a way that is then able to predict future incoming data, what kind of output it will create. In short, that's it.
Yeah, maybe if I may.
Sure, of course.
Yeah, I was just thinking today that maybe it would be an interesting information to explain, because when we decided that this is going to be how it's all going to look and work. When we decided for the workflow, we started with a method which had some rules, and actually those rules were like this, that there's a generator and the neural network. The generator is working randomly, and the neural network is picking up the layouts from the generator. But the way the generator was programmed, there were rules that we actually invented, right? So, I mean, in terms of that I have to build the map, which is by the convolutional neural network perceived as pixels. The plates are perceived as pixels, while practically, there are also stairs for the dog. But the rule is that it is not necessarily possible that in one take I can fluently climb up on the stairs that I am putting together, while the other rule is that absolutely once I climb up to the top, and after I composed all the plates based on the neural network's recommendation, I can absolutely easily go down with the dog and choose whichever path I would choose. So yeah, I was thinking maybe that's a very geeky detail, but that was also one of the rules, right? That we composed for the...
Yeah, because we were, it had to somehow make sense so that...
it's not just random.
Yeah, whatever they were doing physically in the space, that also can work as the data inputs into this neural network. And for the generator that was generating new layouts, also for them to follow it in a certain way, so that the data that's collected actually can somehow make more sense to these methods.
And of course, the biggest difference between the scientific research and the scientific paper or scientific outcome and the artistic research is that art allows a lot of metaphor and a lot of poetry and a sense of humor, something that science does not contemplate. And I find this work being technically very advanced and very well done, but I find it very poetic. And of course, correct me if I'm wrong, but for me the most important questions that you open, the questions that you offer are about coexisting with the other beings, the coexistence with dogs. We all know that dogs are important part of all your life. Also, you as trainers, I know that you not only train dogs, you also co-live with some of them. So for me, it is all about coexisting, about the communication that we started to speak about, how we can learn to communicate with them and from them. I would love to hear you to do some comments on that. Was it this coexisting one of the most important components? Or was it my interpretation?
You mean in the specifically connected to the project? Or?
Yes, and this talking about this project, how the aligning your heartbeats and being together in the grid, climbing up and going down. It's all very metaphorical about the history of the evolution of the humans and
yes.
Dogs.
Yes. Well, the grid, why I decided for the grid is, I mean, such grid is obviously, the system for such grid, it derives out of the Cartesian grid, a very logical and very rational way of thinking. And it's actually the whole Western way of philosophical and natural sciences thinking has been totally based on this kind of discourses, actually, on these dichotomies between culture and nature. Everything is white and black, and everything needs to be proven. So I did it on purpose. But then there are bodies. There's the body, and either it is a body of the other, obviously, since it's the body of a woman and of a dog. I thought at one level what I guess I want to actually achieve and what I want to say without words is while I'm climbing the grid, and it's not very easy, and the grid is absolutely, I mean, I made it, but it's absolutely unfriendly for the body and also for human and a canine body. But I wanted to actually show how it's not really working in terms of the Cartesian grid is working, but on the other hand, there are fluid bodies which are actually melting through this Cartesian grid, and I thought that maybe the digital public space which we established through the non-brute force cloud, which I already mentioned was programmed, that would be a space which actually has a potential for hybrid entities. And this is where it is always going to be archived, when me and the dog met at the physiological level. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
And Tina and Mia, what would you add on? What is it on the daily basis? Is there something that we can learn from the coexisting with an animal, with the dog in this particular case? Is there something you would like to share with us?
You mean our experience
Yes.
with the project, or just in general?
In general, I would say.
Respect
Mm-hmm.
and co-living is possible.
I think during this time of self-isolation that we've been through in spring, many people who were didn't have time to pay attention to the animals or to the plants, suddenly they turned very much into them. And because we all felt the need because we felt that we are part of nature and we've been totally disconnected from nature during those months. We had this conversation with you also about, as an example, what happened during the COVID with you.
Yeah,
and the dogs.
Before we had the conversation, how maybe returning to the question of working, when suddenly most of us were out of work for a limited period of time. First few days were great. We were tending to the flat and to the things we never have time for, like plants, animals and stuff. And after a few days, we were starting to get restless because everybody has a need to be creative, to do something, and if your space is very limited, those possibilities come. They are less and less. So and then maybe it helps really if you have another human being or animal with you, so you can go better.
Yeah, I see.
And it also, dogs also come like really good during the lockdown.
Because you can walk with them.
You can go out then. So they have proven to be, once again, really good companions.
This is true. And this project will last for at least one more year. So you still have to continue your ongoing research. Do you know which direction would you like to explore all these data that you were collecting? Do you think you would be processing them, or you are not interested in any scientific conclusion, but you just want to find more?
Absolutely. With the AI team, we are interested and we would like to explore, I mean, to do the analysis. It's always a constructive thing to do the analysis at the end, especially of such project where looking back in the archive and making sense of the learning curve and why and what happened is actually necessary. Hopefully we will do that and then establish some kind of outcomes out of that. Of course, they're not going to be super totally scientific, but definitely we are going to establish a methodology. I hope we could do that if the further if the project will allow that and all the parameters that go with that. The other thing is that, yes, I am going to be developing this project further. I have been invited by Ars Electronica to be part of their the residency, which is a residency actually of quite a lot of partners. I am very much excited to do that. There I am going to be collaborating with another scientist. We haven't yet had the chance to have a proper conversation, so I'm not yet going to mention, but I'm very much looking forward to that. So the artistic vision that I have, especially regarding that derives out of all this data that we have been gathering and are still going to be gathering, is that, well, one thing is that neural networks are in a way actually imitating the way human or mammal actually, or maybe even other kind of brains are working. Neurons, actually, it's imitating the work of how the neurons work. But then I've been thinking about the memory and about the Jacques Derrida's discourse on the iteration of memory, and also on the system of a human memory, which is always working like this, that you can never really fully remember a specific situation or event. You always, whenever you get a memory of that event, it's always a memory of the last memory that you had of that event. So I think there's something quite poetic going on in the ontological, on the ontological level, in terms if we would focus on the doing all these iterations, and then if we would focus on the memory of the machine and ask ourselves, if the machine is imitating the human memory, is it really imitating it like this, that it is only thinking of the last memory of the event that happened 100 memories ago? So, of course, this is all just symbolic and paraphrasing, but I was thinking that maybe I would, through this window of conceptual window, that I would give the body to all this data, and actually to the artificial intelligence. And I would like to put mechatrons on the grid, which would be embodying, moving whenever I would be absent and the dog would be absent. So they would be moving in the oblivion of the iteration of memory, trying to find the most perfect path to actually gain its objective. Yeah. But let's see what will really happen, because I usually say something. I know, I was just thinking, oh, yeah, but still I'm not signing anything. And I take the freedom to totally change everything during the course of 1 year. Yes, yes.
The last part that I think that we're very near to the end, I would like to dedicate also to this physiology of the project and how you also use your body as a part of art, how much you were training yourself and changing your diet in order to be able to do these daily performances, how this artwork has influenced and all your past daily habits and how you integrated it in your daily life. Can you tell us about all the changes? Do you feel more energetic with all these implementations of your diet? Basically, Maja now is eating super healthy food. And
yeah, well, I realized quite early that I will need to do some training and gain some muscles in order to be able to endure so many iterations. As we were, for the last 3 months, we've been meeting 4 or 5 days a week for 5 to 6 hours and just doing training my body, training the dogs, and feeding the algorithm. So I needed to actually do some, change my living in order to support my body to become more fit. But I think it is a political statement to use your own body as an artistic medium. So I usually tend to do that, to use my body as an artistic medium in my projects, because I think that is one of the last landscapes which we are truly able to use with at least some small autonomy. Yeah.
Thank you. And I was actually thinking that we spoke so much about dogs, and I didn't ask what are their names.
They should tell us. Georgie, what's your name? Frida.
And this is George, and oh, we are missing Ada? Or
Yes, I was thinking, where is Ada?
Yes, Ada actually totally fell asleep before I was leaving, and then I decided actually that I should leave her rest. So yeah, but we have Kiki, and she's been with us.
This is our mascot. So
yes,
I think Kiki was in many commercials. I think it's a really superstar dog.
She's a really famous dog.
Do you get stopped on the road by people?
No, thank you.
by dogs.
Well, thank you, everyone. There were probably no questions. If you have, there are 30 minutes. If something wants to say something.
Well, I would like to thank everybody. Thank you. Thank you for this collaboration, and thank you very much to the producers, Quartis, Click Festival, and Kapelica Gallery, and also Ars Electronica as a partner. Thank you very much for giving me this chance.